What is up, guys? It's your channel, Red Teamer's Edge, back with day 10 of our ethical hacking series on red teaming. We've been diving deep into the world of cybersecurity, learning how to think like the bad guys to ultimately protect ourselves from real-world attacks. And today, oh man, today's a big one. Today we're talking about the cyber attacks themselves. We're talking about the nitty-gritty, the bread and butter of what keeps security professionals up at night. Because let's be real for a second, you can have the best defenses in the world, but if you don't know what you're defending against, what's the point, right? So, buckle up. Grab your favorite energy drink. I've got my LTT screwdriver here, of course, because we're about to unpack 7 of the most common types of attacks that every single person online needs to be aware of. Let's do this thing. Alright, first up we've got phishing attacks. And no, I'm not talking about casting a line out hoping to catch some delicious trout, although the analogy kind of works. See, in phishing, attackers are fishermen too, but instead of worms and lures, they're using deceptive emails, messages, or even websites to try and hook you into giving up something valuable. Your personal information. Think usernames, passwords, credit card details, you name it. These guys are after anything they can use to steal your identity or your hard-earned cash. And the worst part, these phishing attempts are getting sneakier by the day. I'm talking about emails that look like they're from your bank, messages that seem to be from a friend, even websites that are designed to mimic the real deal. It's scary how convincing they can be. But don't worry, we're not going to leave you hanging. Over the next few minutes, we're going to break down the most common phishing techniques, show you how to spot a fake email from a mile away, and arm you with the knowledge you need to protect yourself from getting hooked. Trust me, a few minutes of learning now can save you a whole lot of headache and potentially heartache down the road. Next up, we're tackling a sneaky little attack vector known as clickjacking. This one plays on the oldest trick in the book, making you think you're clicking on one thing, when in reality, you're clicking on something completely different. It's like one of those magic tricks where the magician makes something disappear right in front of your eyes. Except in this case, it's your data vanishing into thin air. Imagine this. You're browsing your favorite website, maybe watching a funny cat video. Don't judge, we've all been there. And you see what looks like a harmless button that says play, but here's the catch. Attackers have layered an invisible button on top of the real one. So, when you go to click play, you're actually clicking on the hidden button, which could take you to a malicious website, download malware onto your computer, or even worse, trick you into making an online purchase without realizing it. Clickjacking is all about exploiting trust and using clever UI tricks to deceive you. But don't worry, by the end of this section, you'll be a clickjacking ninja, able to spot these traps a mile away and keep your data safe and sound. Alright, let's talk about SQL injection attacks. Now this one's a bit more technical, but trust me, it's super important to understand, especially if you're running a website or web application. See, SQL, or Structured Query Language, is the language that websites use to talk to their databases. It's how they store and retrieve information like user accounts, passwords, product details, you name it. And that's exactly what makes SQL injection attacks so dangerous. These attacks exploit vulnerabilities in a website's code, allowing attackers to inject malicious SQL code into those database queries. Think of it like this. Imagine you have a key to a safe, but the lock is a bit flimsy. An SQL injection attack is like finding a way to jiggle that key just right so you can bypass the lock altogether and get access to everything inside. And what can attackers do with that access? Oh, you know, just a few minor things like stealing sensitive data, modifying existing data, deleting entire databases, or even taking control of the entire website server. Yeah, not great. Okay, time to talk about DOS attacks, or denial of service attacks, as the cool kids call them. Now this one's less about stealing your data and more about causing chaos and disruption. Imagine a website or online service as a shop, right? It's got its doors open, welcoming customers, everything's running smoothly. Then suddenly, a massive crowd of people shows up all at once, blocking the entrance, overwhelming the staff, making it impossible for anyone else to get in. That's essentially what a DOS attack does. Attackers flood a server, a network, or even an entire website with so much traffic that it can't handle it all. The system gets overloaded, slows down to a crawl, and eventually crashes, making it completely inaccessible to legitimate users. It's like cutting the brakes on a car. It might not steal the car, but it sure as heck causes a whole lot of damage. We're talking about lost revenue, frustrated customers, and a whole lot of explaining to do for the poor folks responsible for keeping things running. Chapter 5, Cross-Site Scripting Injecting Malicious Code. Up next, we've got cross-site scripting, or XSS attacks. And these bad boys are all about injecting malicious code into websites to target unsuspecting users. See, websites these days are dynamic, which means they use scripts to display content, handle user interactions, and all sorts of fancy stuff. But what happens when those scripts are hijacked by attackers? That's where things get interesting. And by interesting, I mean terrifying. In an XSS attack, attackers find vulnerabilities in a website's code and inject their own malicious scripts, which then get stored on the website's server. Now, whenever an unsuspecting user visits that infected page, their browser unknowingly runs the malicious script, thinking it's part of the website's legitimate code. And that's when the fun begins. These malicious scripts can do all sorts of nasty things, like stealing your cookies, the digital kind, not the delicious kind, redirecting you to malicious websites, logging your keystrokes to steal your passwords, or even launching further attacks on other users who visit the same page. Chapter 6. Session Hijacking, Stealing Your Identity. Alright, let's talk about session hijacking, which is basically the digital equivalent of stealing someone's identity. See, when you log into a website, you're assigned a unique session ID, kind of like a temporary passport that proves you are who you say you are. This session ID is usually stored as a cookie in your browser, and it allows you to browse the website, make purchases, and access your account without having to re-enter your login credentials every single time. Now, session hijacking is all about stealing that precious session ID like a thief swiping your passport at a coffee shop. Once attackers get their hands on your session ID, they can impersonate you, access your account, and wreak all sorts of havoc, all while you're none the wiser. They can change your passwords, make unauthorized transactions, steal your personal information, you name it, they can do it all because they've hijacked your digital identity. Chapter 7, Malware, the Silent Invader. And finally, let's talk about malware, the silent invader of the digital world. Malware is a catch-all term for any type of malicious software that's designed to infiltrate, disrupt, damage, or gain unauthorized access to your computer systems. Think of it like a digital parasite, latching onto your devices and wreaking havoc behind the scenes. We're talking about viruses, worms, trojans, ransomware, spyware, the list goes on and on. These nasty little programs can spread through malicious email attachments, infected websites, software vulnerabilities, or even seemingly harmless USB drives. And once they're inside your system, it's game over. They can steal your data, spy on your activity, slow down your computer, delete your files, or even lock you out of your own system and hold it hostage until you pay a ransom. Outro, stay safe, stay vigilant. That's it for today's episode on cyber attacks, guys. We've covered a lot of ground, from phishing and clickjacking to SQL injection and malware. Remember, knowledge is power, and the more you know about these threats, the better equipped you'll be to defend yourself and your data. Stay tuned for more insights in our Red Teaming Ethical Hacking series, where we'll be diving deep into the world of cybersecurity, exploring advanced attack techniques, and learning how to build robust defenses. And as always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to stay updated. Until next time, stay safe, stay vigilant, and keep those firewalls strong.